Hey YouTubers, I want to show you a motorbike. It's basically a huge mini bike. These wheels are off of AMF mopeds that had the little gravel roller or grindstone roller on the back tire. Sat right up here over the back tire and had a little plastic cover. They weren't worth a darn. Electronic ignition cost more money than what you could buy the moped for back in the day. So once the electronic went bad, people would scrap them. Well, I got the wheels, the fork, the gooseneck and handlebars, and I think the luggage rack off of one. Put them on an old frame, and somebody told me this was a Ross or a Roll Fast frame. I'm not really sure. If any of y'all recognize it, you can leave me a comment. But what I did, I took the pedal crank socket out of a British bike where you could knock the pedals off by driving out the wedge pin. Welded it to a big old heavy plate. Got it welded top and bottom so it's triangulated for strength. I like the big fat spokes and the big tires because I'm a big man. I don't want to get myself skinned up. Over here I used 3 bolts that fell in between the spokes just like they were made for it. Drilled holes, took some 1/4 inch fine thread bolts, ground the heads off on a slant. I don't know if you can tell it or not, but I'm going to try to get it where you can. Ground the heads off on the bolts so they can't turn. It's centered up real well. Had to match a little flat spot in the frame for the chain. Used an old early Briggs & Stratton with the rope cup, float carb, which if you run it hard, it actually starves out, even with the float level raised high, and even with the gas tank elevated a little bit. It takes it out faster with it vibrating and all than it can get in. So I need to either go with bigger gas line or a whole different setup. But I'm not going to fool with any of that. It's up and running. If you ride it sensible, it's not an issue. Bicycle handlebar for the exhaust with a muffler welded on. Kind of took a cheap shot there, but this has been here 35 years, Valentine's Day. Wow, that's a trip. Just a couple days ago, I moved in my house Valentine's Day 35 years ago. Drum brake, front and rear. Just cut the frame open like I do on all of them. No, not all of them. That's not true. Cut the frame open, pried it apart, cut it off down where the pedal crank socket was. This bike has almost no hours, but it does have some age. It's been down here forever, but it's never even gotten greasy from use. Very little. Let me see. Let me get a light here. I even made a little drip pan underneath the carburetor because it was softening up the paint. The paint hadn't quite gelled real good. When I first got it running, I choked it and kicked it through till it flooded and was washing some of my paint off. I put some big old washers in the bearing holes to kind of plug them up. Kickstands welded on to ensure that the bolt does what it's got to do. Bicycle rear wheel sprocket welded to a pulley so I could fasten it down to that shaft where the pedal crank used to be when this was on a British bike. Let's see, and that motor is a 1960. First 2 numbers in the code on a Briggs & Stratton old motor tell you the year, and it's, I can get my light just right, you'll be able to see it. Well, that's too much trouble. But anyway, it's a 1960 motor. The coolest thing about it, or the only thing kind of odd and worth mentioning, it's just another bike like other bikes. But up here on the clutch linkage, I took and made a foot clutch. Hang this light right, did me some good. This foot clutch has a locking deal. Right now the belt's loose, it's in neutral. Bike will sit still and the motor will run, and I made me a belt guard so that the belt's not trying to drag. It's got equal pressure on it. You can sit and idle all day and it won't chew up the belt. But on my foot clutch, this little catch holds it in the release spot. So when you're sitting at a traffic light, you got the pedal pushed down, you tip your foot back and it goes ahead, and when you let up, it tightens the belt and you're driving. Then if you come up to a stop, you push it in and click it forward. You click it forward and it locks in the neutral position, so you can go ahead and put your left foot on the ground if you want to. And if you push the pedal a little too far, it doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of difference because the linkage is a real stiff spring. Drive, neutral, neutral with your foot on the ground. If you don't want to fool with hooking it each time, you just lean to the right when you stop. But if it has to be done, you lock it like that. That's a tricycle pedal with a little linkage I made. God, we're going back now. It's been a long time. But I remember it, not like it was yesterday, but I do remember it. Got like a universal idler there. Got a little bit of rust in the pulley. You can tell it's sat down here. My basement gets damp every once in a while. We get a good rain. The floor will get wet. It doesn't climb, thank God, and doesn't climb up the walls, but it does leak, and I have to squeegee it out. I still wouldn't take nothing from my shop. Got a vent on the gas cap made out of a valve core remover. I've done that on a couple of them. Keep the mess down. And I just run a bracket that would have been the exact replacement for that shiny bracket on the bottom of the tank. I just used one on something on a bike I just showed on a video the other day. Now I can't remember what it was. But anyway, it was a proper bracket for that, for the bottom of the tank, so it wouldn't vibrate and wouldn't break these top holes out. I made do with what I had, obviously. Trying to sound like I remember it, but I don't. That's about it. I'll get it cleaned out and wipe down, or I may wait till a warm day and take it outside and spray it off with water and some watered down simple green. Get her looking good and clean the carb out and get it started. So when that happens, I'll make a video of it. Thanks for watching. John Wade on YouTube. Bye-bye.